You didn't see it coming because they didn't feel dangerous. They felt right. They showed up with warmth, attention, and exactly what you needed until slowly, almost without noticing, you gave them access to everything. There are 5 people like this. And the 4th one, you'd never suspect because they look exactly like love. Let's start with the status seekers. At first, they don't seem dangerous. They just seem successful. They talk about what they have, what they're building, where they've been. Their lifestyle looks impressive and they carry themselves with confidence. And for a moment, it's even inspiring to be around them. You think they have their life together. But slowly, something starts to feel different. Because it's never just sharing. Every conversation somehow circles back to them. What they own, what they've achieved, who they know. And when you speak about yourself, the energy shifts. It's subtle, but you feel it. Less interest, less attention, less space for you. And over time, you start noticing what it does to you. Your wins don't feel as big anymore. Your progress feels slower. Your life starts to feel behind. Not because they said it directly, but because everything around them feels like a comparison. They don't ask how you're doing. They show you how well they're doing. And without realizing it, you start measuring yourself. You think, I should be further. I should have more by now. That pressure didn't come from you. It came from being around them. Because their value is built on being seen as ahead, everything becomes a performance. The clothes, the places, the stories, all carefully presented to reinforce one message: I'm winning. And the longer you're around that, the more it affects you. You hesitate to share your life fully. You downplay your progress. Or worse, you start trying to keep up, spending more, pushing more, comparing more, until your self-worth slowly starts depending on how you measure up next to them. That's when it becomes dangerous. Because they're not attacking you directly, but they're changing how you see yourself. And the worst part, they don't even realize it. To them, they're just sharing, just motivating, just being confident. But what they're really doing is projecting an image they need others to believe. Because deep down, their worth depends on it. And if you stay around that long enough, you stop appreciating your own life. You stop moving at your own pace. You stop feeling like you're enough. Because you're no longer living your life. You're measuring it. The second one is the narcissist. At first, the narcissist doesn't feel dangerous. They feel perfect. They're attentive in a way that feels rare. They remember small details you mentioned once. They text at the right moment. They say things like, I've never felt this way with anyone else, or you're different. And it hits you because it's exactly what you needed to hear. They make you feel chosen. But slowly, things start to feel off. Not enough to leave. Just enough to confuse you. They still show up, but not the same way. One day they're warm, the next they're distant. You start wondering what changed. You replay conversations in your head, trying to figure out if you said something wrong. And when you bring it up, they don't really answer. They say things like, you're overthinking, or why are you making this a problem? So you stop asking. You start adjusting instead. You think, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I need to be more understanding, more patient, less emotional. And without realizing it, you start working for their attention. You notice that when you pull back, they come closer again. When you give less, they give just enough to keep you there. Just enough to remind you of how it felt in the beginning. And that's what keeps you hooked, because you've seen that version of them. You've felt it. So you believe it's still there, somewhere. But the truth is, that version only shows up when they feel you slipping away. Everything becomes about them, their mood, their needs, their timing. If something goes wrong, somehow it turns back on you. Not directly, not aggressively, but in a way that makes you question yourself. You end up apologizing just to keep the peace, even when you're not sure what you did. And over time, you feel it. You're more anxious, more careful with your words, less like yourself. But you stay, because nothing is clearly wrong. And that's exactly why it's so hard to leave, because it doesn't look toxic from the outside. It just feels confusing on the inside. Until one day, you realize you've been trying to earn something that was never real to begin with. And that's when it hits you. They didn't love you for who you are. They loved how you made them feel. The third one is the one who's always right. The always feels like strength. They speak with certainty, they seem grounded, and they always have an explanation for everything. Being around them can even feel stabilizing, like you're with someone who knows and who won't be shaken easily. But over time, you begin to notice that something is missing. It's not loud, not aggressive, not obvious, but conversations with them never really feel like conversations. They feel like quiet competitions where there is always a right side and a wrong one. And somehow, they are never on the wrong side. When you share an opinion, they adjust it. When you express a feeling, they reinterpret it. When you try to explain your experience, they reshape it until it fits their version of reality. And at first, you try to meet them there. You explain yourself more clearly, choosing your words with precision, adding context, giving examples, hoping that if you just communicate better, they will finally understand you. But no matter how carefully you speak, the result is the same. Your perspective is challenged, corrected, or quietly dismissed. What makes it so difficult to recognize is that they don't do it in a way that looks toxic. They remain calm, composed, even logical. From the outside, they appear reasonable. But inside the interaction, you feel something very different. A constant pressure to prove that your thoughts, your feelings, even your reality are valid. And that pressure changes you. You start hesitating before speaking, not because you don't have something to say, but because you already anticipate the response. You replay your words before saying them, adjusting them in your head to make them stronger, more acceptable, harder to argue against. Slowly, you begin to filter yourself, not out of growth, but out of protection. Over time, this creates something deeper than frustration. It creates doubt. You begin to question your own perspective, wondering if you are misunderstanding situations or overreacting. You start to rely less on your instincts and more on how they might interpret things. And without realizing it, you slowly hand over something essential, your trust in your own voice. That is where the real damage happens. Because this is not about being wrong in a conversation. It is about being placed again and again in a position where your experience feels less valid than theirs. It is about learning to stay quiet, not because you agree, but because speaking feels pointless. And the most dangerous part is that nothing looks broken from the outside. There are no fights, no explosions, no obvious signs of conflict, just a slow shift where you go from expressing freely to carefully selecting what feels safe to say. From trusting yourself to second-guessing everything. Until one day, you notice something you can't ignore anymore. You don't speak the same way. You don't think the same way. And more than anything, you don't trust yourself the same way. And that's when you realize that the problem was never that they were always right. It's that over time, you were made to feel like you were always wrong. The fourth one is the silent saboteur. They are the worst. They were always in your corner. That's what you believed. That's what they wanted you to believe. They showed up at the right moments, said the right things, offered support when you needed it. encouragement when you doubted yourself, presence when you felt alone. From the outside, they looked like exactly what a partner, a friend, a person in your life should look like. But something never added up. Every time you were about to take a step forward, something happened. A comment that arrived at exactly the wrong moment. A doubt planted so carefully you thought it was your own. A subtle shift in energy right before something important. An interview, a launch, a decision that could have changed everything. You noticed it, but you dismissed it because they seemed so supportive. That is precisely how the silent saboteur operates. They don't attack your dreams directly. They would never do that. That would be too obvious, too visible, too easy to identify and confront. Instead, they work in the margins, in the spaces between what is said and what is meant, in the timing of a sigh, the weight of a silence, the careful placement of a single sentence that stays with you longer than it should. Are you sure you're ready for this? I just don't want to see you get hurt again. You know how these things usually go for you. Each statement sounds reasonable. Each one sounds like concern. But the cumulative effect of these statements, delivered consistently over months and years, is devastating. You begin to hesitate where you once moved forward. You begin to shrink where you once expanded. You begin to filter every ambition through their invisible approval and find yourself abandoning more than you pursue. And here is what makes this person so difficult to confront. They have plausible deniability for everything. Every comment can be reframed as concern. Every moment of sabotage can be reframed as caution. Every time you try to name what is happening, they look at you with genuine confusion, or worse, with hurt. And suddenly you are the one apologizing for having noticed. You start to wonder if you are paranoid, if you are ungrateful, if you are misreading someone who genuinely cares about you. You are not paranoid. You are paying attention, finally, because the silent saboteur is not always conscious of what they are doing. Some of them operate from a place of deep insecurity, a fear that your growth will leave them behind, that your success will expose their stagnation, that your expansion will make the gap between you impossible to ignore. They don't want you to fail because they hate you. They want you to stay because they are terrified of being left. But the impact on you is the same, regardless of the intention. You are smaller, you are slower, you are less than you were before they entered your life. And every version of yourself that could have existed, every dream pursued, every risk taken, every leap made, has been quietly, consistently, methodically discouraged. That is not love. Love expands you. Love makes you braver. Love stands beside your ambition and says, "Go. I will be here when you return." The silent saboteur stands beside your ambition and says, "Are you sure?" And over time, you stop being sure. You stop being sure of your ideas, your instincts, your capacity, your worth. And that uncertainty, that slow erosion of your own belief in yourself, is the most expensive thing you will ever pay for staying with the wrong person. You deserve someone who celebrates your growth, not someone who quietly buries it. The last one is the emotionally cold. They were there, physically, consistently, reliably there. And yet you spent the entire relationship feeling completely alone. Not because they were absent, but because no matter how close you got, no matter how much you gave, no matter how many walls you carefully dismantled, there was always another one behind it. Always another invisible barrier between you and the part of them you were desperately trying to reach. You told yourself it was depth, that they were complex, that the people worth loving don't open easily, and that patience was the price of something real. So you waited. You softened your approach. You made yourself smaller, quieter, less demanding. And still, you never arrived, because there was nowhere to arrive. The intimacy you were reaching for was not being withheld temporarily. It was structurally unavailable, not because of you, not because of anything you said or did or failed to do, but because something in them, something old, something deep, something that happened long before you, closed that door, and they have been living behind it ever since. The emotionally cold person is not cruel. That is what makes them so difficult to leave. They don't hurt you with words. They hurt you with absence, with the consistent, quiet unavailability of their inner world, with the way they can sit beside you for hours and remain completely unreachable, with the way vulnerability makes them retreat instead of respond. You bring your heart to them, and they hand it back. Not with anger, with discomfort, with a subtle withdrawal that tells you, this is too much. I cannot go there with you, and you, because you love them, learn to stop bringing it. You stop sharing the things that matter most. You stop reaching for the connection you need. You stop asking for what you are not receiving, because asking has only ever produced distance. And slowly, without noticing, you become emotionally cold too, not by nature, by adaptation. You shut down the parts of yourself that kept getting hurt by the absence of response. You build your own walls, not to protect yourself from the world, but to protect yourself from the pain of being with someone who cannot meet you. And now, there are two people in a relationship, both behind walls, both alone, both calling it stability. This is not stability. This is shared loneliness with a shared address. Here is what you need to understand about the emotionally cold person. They are not going to become available because you make yourself small enough to fit through the gap they leave. Emotional unavailability is not a phase. It is not a wall that love can break down given enough time. It is a fortress built over decades, and it requires their own decision, their own reckoning, their own work to dismantle. That is not your job. Your job is not to save someone from their own walls. Your job is not to spend your life knocking on a door that will never open. Your job is not to shrink your need for intimacy until it fits inside the narrow space they offer.